Hello and welcome to What the Lux with me, Fred Moore.
And me, Anant Sharma.
Together we lead Matchreform, brand and experience design consultancy headquartered in London, and this is a podcast that calls time on tired ideas of luxury.
And alongside industry luminaries and thought leaders, we explore what truly defines category-leading products and experiences. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Robin Chadha to our podcast today. Robin is not only a brilliant entrepreneur, but also a dear friend who started off in the nightlife business with a club in Amsterdam called Rain. But Robin's built something truly unique with citizenM, and it's been going since 2008. It was described by the FT as stylish, high-tech, and cheap. And I can't wait to find out more about citizenM's take on luxury, especially with the importance it places on design, music, and comfort. Robin, can you just tell us a little bit about your background? How did you end up as the CMO at citizenM? And can you just touch a little bit on your life in the world of nightclubs as well?
I figured you want to touch upon that. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. Yeah, I'm Robin Chadha. I am the Chief Brand Officer for citizenM. Been with the company since inception, obviously. I have an Indian father, I have a Dutch mother, and I have an American education. You can hear that still in my accent. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, outside of Amsterdam. I then moved to the US for my university years and stayed on working there for a couple of years as well. My first job was on Wall Street, on the New York Stock Exchange, where I learned that money is not everything. I just didn't love what I was doing. I'm more of a creative guy, and I left Wall Street after about a year. Then I moved into fashion, which is also where my roots come from, which we'll touch upon later. And I worked for Tommy Hilfiger in New York, for Tommy Jeans. And there I realized that I love the fashion industry and everything it stands for. I couldn't find myself really at home at Tommy. It was a very kind of, corporate culture. Then I went back to the Netherlands. I worked for my father's company, which was called Mex, where I did kind of a 1-year internship around every single department. On the retail side of the business, I did the same then on the back side of the business, more on the production side, which was a lot of fun. Ended up living in Istanbul for 3-4 months, launching a denim collection. Ended up on the product side. Mex was then sold in 2001 to an American company called Liz Claiborne, and then I decided to branch out on my own. And I'd always been fascinated with hospitality. Whenever we would travel to a new city, the first thing I would do is go to the newest hotel or nightclub or bar or restaurant to see what they've done. So I decided, together with a business partner of mine, to open a restaurant, cocktail bar / nightclub called Rain, which we opened in 2005 in the center of Amsterdam. Let's just put it this way. It was a hell of a lot of fun. I was 27 years old. But we offered something very unique. It was really ahead of its time, I would say. We were doing molecular gastronomy in 2005. We had all the cocktail shakers flown in from London because you guys were way ahead of that compared to Amsterdam. We had DJs flying in from all over the world. So we had some great parties. We sold that in 2008, partially also because I was already busy with citizenM, which was at that time called One Star is Born. That was our code name. And that's where I am still today. So that's a little bit my background.
So you're an Indo-Dutch citizen of the world. At various junctures can relate to the world of fashion, to the world of New York banking, Amsterdam nightlife, and now the very global world that is the world of hotels.
Well, I'll take you back a little bit to our inception. Why did we do this? So my father, who's actually the founder of the company, he, of course, had this fashion business, which he built with a bunch of his friends over 20, 25 years. And at any given time, there were about 100 designers working at Mex. There was Mex Men, Mex Women, Mex Kids, Mex Baby, Mex Shoes, all the accessory lines. And all these designers would travel the world. They would go to LA, New York, they would go to Paris Fashion Week, to Tokyo, etc. But Mex had a very strict travel budget. I think you could spend, it was around 150 euros per night on a hotel. And that was really the max. If it was 151 euros, you had to share with a colleague. So what happened was you had all these, let's say really young contemporary designers going to Paris Fashion Week, hoping to stay in the center of town at a real cool lifestyle hotel, but the budget didn't allow for that. So they ended up staying outside of the city center in a nondescript hotel, and they came back with these long faces. And that's where the light bulb moment was for Gautam. He said, why has this industry never been disrupted? And we'd seen disruption, of course, in fashion, right? When H&M, with Zara, we'd seen it in air travel with EasyJet. I still remember the ads. The ATL was Amsterdam to Lisbon, $9.95. The whole world was upside down. Like, how is that possible? So that was a little bit the inception point, really to look at this traditional industry, to find points of entry, to disrupt, to create something that was really hybrid. So offering something that was very luxurious and lifestyle oriented, but at an affordable price. Really looking at today's travelers, what do they want from a great hotel and what don't they need from a bad one? And then it was really fun. We just made a list of, we took a blank piece of paper and we started listing out things that frustrated us when we traveled. Long queues, when checking in, all these different room types, hidden costs. Back then, of course, Wi-Fi was being charged per device, movies, phone calls. I mean, even today, mini bars. I'm not sure who makes the pricing for mini bars, but I can go down to the bodega on the corner and get a can of Coke for 50 cents, and in the hotel it costs £7. And we said, okay, let's find answers for all these things. And then we started, of course, investigating and seeing why this had never been done before. Also looking at the industry in a more holistic macro sense. And we saw that, most hotel companies are just operators. They don't own their real estate, which means you get a very fragmented brand experience. And here in Amsterdam, for example, you have two Hiltons. One is in the center of town. It's an older property built in the 70s. But when you walk in there, it really feels like luxury. Marble floors, beautiful bouquet of flowers. There's scenting in the space. There's a guy playing the piano. It's classic luxury, but you recognize it. And then you go to the Hilton at the airport, and it's like you've entered Star Trek. Super contemporary, blue neon light. So there's no consistency in the brand at all. And we said, okay, if we do this, we want to really build a consistent brand experience. So we have to also be the owner and the operator. So we own the majority of our real estate, which allows us to control the brand from start to finish.
That's really interesting. Your comment on consistent brand experience, I think, is an important one, but particularly in the context of a customer or client who perhaps is less consistent, and I think a lot more flexible than they perhaps once were 10 years ago. I think we're not constrained by our demographic or our wealth classification anywhere near as much as we used to be. Can you talk to us a bit about the citizenM guest?
Yeah, so people always ask me that. So what are your standard demographics? And I always reply with the same answer. So it's not about your demographics, so what's your age or where you come from, etc. It's really actually about what's inside of you. I always take my father as an example. He's super young at heart. He's 73 years old, but if we're in Saint-Tropez, he's probably later in the nightclub than I am. So it's not about age. I always say that our customers are value conscious. So what does that mean? Of course, they're urban, they're frequent travelers, they're contemporary, they're well-informed, but they're value conscious, meaning they have disposable income to spend, but they spend it very wisely on things that are important to them. And that could be different for me or for you. So I always like the phrase, they travel by train, but they also drink champagne, right? Getting from A to B, I don't need an Uber. I can just take the train or the tram, and it's very efficient and cost efficient. It gets me there on time. But when I get to the bar, I'm not going to compromise on what I'm drinking. Or it's the girl who's only wearing H&M or Zara, but she has a Chanel bag because that's important to her. Or there's a guy who's wearing, just a plain white T-shirt, pair of Levi's, which he's had in his closet for 5 years, but he's wearing a Rolex or a super expensive designer fragrance. So they spend on things that are important to them, and that's where citizenM comes in very nicely. That's kind of the answer to them. So if you're in cities like New York or London or Paris, where hotel rates are, especially in the luxury sector, are easily $1,000 a night, why would you spend that money when you're not really going to be spending much time in that hotel room? I'd rather have the same location, the same lifestyle experience, but having money left over in my pocket for shopping, for F&B, for Ubers up and down to the airport, etc.
Have you ever had a laughably unreasonable request from a guest, either to citizenM or to your nightclub?
Oh, we've had many. We've had many.
What's the most ludicrous?
We had P. Diddy doing his album release party in Amsterdam. And he sent some of his guys to the club beforehand, his security, et cetera, and they had a whole list of demands. I mean, it was ridiculous. So he wanted to have money, number one, to host the party there. He wanted to have, specific beverages. Then he started getting into specifics about food. So he wanted chocolate-covered strawberries, only white chocolate. Then he had a whole list of narcotics that he wanted us to provide for him. And at that moment, I said, well, that's not going to happen. You're in Amsterdam, you go find it yourself. But quite crazy, really like a rioter, The only thing I was missing was just the blue M&Ms. And in the hotels, there's so many stories. I mean, the one nice thing that we do is we do these things called random acts of kindness in the hotels. Whereas in any bar, imagine you go to your bar once a week, it's your local hangout, your local pub. you know the bartender, you're going to get a free beer from time to time, right? The problem is if the waiter who gives you the free beer gets caught, he's not allowed. So at citizenM, we have a button on the POS, which is called Random Act of Kindness. Again, going back to that empowerment of our ambassadors, they can give you anything they want, and that's not only like food and beverage or giving a beer away or a cocktail. They can give your whole stay away for free, but that's just the beginning of it. So they really go above and beyond. So if they know you're coming in for an anniversary, they'll go as far as to fill your room up with balloons, put a bottle of champagne in the room, handwritten card from the team, maybe even a picture in a frame that's sitting on your desk already of you and your fiance. So those are kind of the happier ones, but we've also had really kind of heavy ones, especially like during the terrorism attacks at Borough Market, for example, that we really had our team stand up and, get everyone in the hotel. It doesn't matter if they're hotel guests or not. Had blankets, started making hot chocolate for people, keeping them safe indoors. We had somebody in New York, which they were getting married. And I think it was a girl from Europe, and she'd organized a makeup artist and a hairdresser, and they didn't show up to the hotel. So one of our ambassadors actually went to one of the stores, bought all this kind of makeup and hair products, and showed up at the door and said, "Listen, I'm not a hairstylist or a makeup artist, but let me try." Which was quite an amazing story. So yeah, those are the things that also really resonate. Not only the strange requests, but also the beautiful requests. The real human side of hospitality, that really comes across.
That's really lovely to hear, but also just feels uncannily on brand for citizenM. So it's clearly the spirit of the brand lives on in the actions of its team. Back in 2008, when you started, you placed such an emphasis on creating a digitally enabled, friction-free experience. And, we work a lot on hospitality, and there's one thing I can say that I'm pretty sure no one would disagree with, and that is most of the industry is held hostage to very bad technology.
Correct.
How did you navigate that?
I think we've always seen technology as an enabler, not really much as a differentiator. And hotel technology sits in three different areas, right? You have the kind of commercial distribution technology, you have the hotel systems, and then you have the guest-facing technology. And if the first 2 points aren't well set up, then you really need to have a contemporary architecture for data flow and general system connectivity. And otherwise, the guest-facing tech will stay behind. And I think when we started, we really looked at that list of frustrations that I mentioned. And one of the frustrations was standing in line to check in. So there we said, okay, what's the answer to that? And we looked at airlines, and we saw that they were just launching these self-check-in kiosks. So we asked ourselves the question, why can't we do that as well? And everybody told us it's impossible. You need a front desk. You need to take the passport. You need to have them fill out the form. But we didn't listen to those people, obviously. And I think we were the first company to have self-check-in terminals at our hotels, which we still have in all our hotels. And the only reason we did that, not to be techie, but to give the guests a 1-minute check-in and a 1-minute checkout. Same thing goes for the in-room technology. We said, okay, Wi-Fi has to be free. That's one thing we're going to do for sure. But what do we do when the room controls? Because most hotels will have a TV remote control, then they'll have a remote control for the lights, or they'll have switches for the lights. They'll have some kind of system to control the temperature, which is not always the easiest thing to figure out. So we said, we want one device that controls your blackout curtains, your lighting, your mood lighting, your television, your temperature, everything. So again, it was done from a guest point of view, not from a tech point of view. I had always had the belief that we should launch an app only if we can really make a difference to the guest experience. And then COVID hit. So we fast-tracked the app. And I think we're one of the first hotel companies to offer globally the contactless check-in and check-out, et cetera. And that, of course, now has maintained itself, and we've added new features to it. But it's, again, from the guest point of view. I want to be able to check into my room before I even reach the hotel. I already want to know what room I'm in. I want to stream content from my phone to the large screen in the room. I want to be able to check out and see my folio on my phone. You see the industry catching up, obviously. I don't think it's going to be a huge differentiator years from now, but I think we had the first mover advantage, and we're going to keep on adding to the tech, but only if it makes a difference to the guest experience.
While you're about selling nights of sleep, you've also got an amazing focus on design, art, music. Can you talk us through your design journey? Because when you walk into a citizenM, it really is a unique, albeit, as you mentioned before, consistent experience from one location to the next.
I think we always set out to have a consistent brand. When we were doing a lot of the research, I always like to look at what's the ultra luxury segment doing? What is the budget segment doing? And I was in Paris, and I was just doing tours of all the luxury hotels there. So I went to the Crillon, I went to the Plaza Athénée, I went to the George V, I went to the Ritz. And one thing stood out. They all looked exactly the same, right? They all look like, Louis the 15th or Louis the 16th kind of styling and chandeliers and, and I think I wasn't the only one who saw that, because George Sank, which is managed by Four Seasons, they also saw that, that customers were not differentiating between products. So what they did was they hired this florist called Jeff Leatham, very famous florist out of Los Angeles. And they flew him to Paris and they said, listen, we're going to give you €1 million a year. And we want you to come back 4 times a year and to do an installation in the lobby. So you imagine that, having to differentiate yourself by paying €1 million a year on flowers. Anyways, he did that, and now they become famous for it. When you walk into the George Sank around Christmas time, you see these beautiful sculptures, and they've done that now throughout the portfolio. But we said, okay, we don't need to do that. Let's just make sure that our design is very, very, very differentiated. But also, how do we do that? So the first thing we did was, okay, who should our furniture partner be? And we looked around and we saw Vitra, and we saw Vitra makes some of the best furniture in the world. Their art, and actually every single piece of furniture that Vitra makes is an art piece in its own right. It's colorful, it's vibrant, it's fun. So we went to Vitra and we asked them, how would you like to have showrooms all over the world? They're like, oh, we already have showrooms. I'm like, yeah, but showrooms that people are actually using your furniture. Imagine somebody lying in your Eames hawker chair and watching the football game with a beer in his hand. And they love the idea. So Vitra has been a furniture partner since day one. We looked at the layout of we call the living room. So it's a multifunctional space for meeting, for reading a book, for, watching the football game, as I said, for doing work, for having small meetings, and people really use it as such. And then we started looking at the brand design. So what should some of the signature features be? We have these cabinets, which are always featured in all of our living rooms. And we said, well, let's fill those up with really amazing styling items. It should almost emulate a very well-traveled person's home. When you travel, you might pick up a beautiful vase from somewhere, but you also might pick up something very kind of, quirky and, ugly, but you still have it on one of your shelves. And that's also our key to localizing a little bit the styling. So if you go to our hotel in Boston, it's above the TD Garden where the Boston Celtics play. So we have a lot of sport paraphernalia, stuff like that in the styling concept. Art plays a pivotal role within the design. We started off with always having commissioned art on the exterior of our buildings. And that has now evolved to, commissions on the inside of the buildings, on ceilings, on carpets. We always team up with local, either art schools or institutions or museums to do the in-room art. And I think we've done over 150 art commissions across our 31 hotels, plus a very large collection of art. And we actually design our cabinetry around the art pieces that we buy, specifically per hotel. The latest art piece that I'm very proud of is a piece by Jen Stark in our Miami Brickell Hotel, which is 5 huge panels on the facade of the building, super colorful, a bit psychedelic, but it really makes the hotel stand out from a distance. So I think, the brand design has evolved, just like any brand evolves as well. So when we started to where we are now, it has evolved, but it's still very recognizable. And I think if I were to blindfold you and put you in Taipei or LA or Copenhagen, and unblindfold you, you right away would recognize, hey, this is a citizenM hotel, without it being too much copy-paste.
Robin, we're all increasingly aware of the consequences of travel on the climate. I guess that's particularly relevant to business travel. How have citizenM approached sustainability?
Well, we have a vision. Our vision is to influence positive change in a world where we are simply guests. We've always kind of had that mantra, but we always said we have to do good to the communities that we're building these properties in, to our guests, but also to the planet. We are quite efficient hotel, I would say. So our footprint is not drastic. And we've done the standard things, of course, like, no single-use plastics, et cetera, but the really nice thing about citizenM that a lot of our hotels are built modular, which means that we build our rooms off-site in a controlled environment. We ship them to the destination, we stack them on top of each other. That leads to, of course, faster build time, less on-time construction and construction waste, and it's a much cleaner build. And a lot of our hotels have the LEED or the BREEAM certifications of gold or better. Another thing which we currently did is we secured a sustainable loan, which is tied to specific ESG targets. So we're allowed to borrow this money from certain banks in order to fund our growth, but tied to specific ESG targets. We have an annual report that comes out where we really take it seriously and looking at every single aspect of ESG, not only on the environmental side of things as well. It's available on our website. So it's something that's super important, especially moving forward. And we want to build the cleanest, and most efficient buildings in the world, actually, without taking it to extremes.
I mean, the business is so successful and it's survived a financial crisis and COVID, which is a lot to go through, all while trying to reinvent the conventions and industry. Are there any moments in that process where your heart's just sunk because a combination of things have gone wrong at the same time?
I mean, I think for us, for me, COVID was really, really, imagine, I think at that time, because we did open quite a lot of new hotels at the time, but we had so many decisions to make. We had about, I think it was 8 or 9 hotels under construction. What do we do? Do we stop them? Do we finish them? We had other ones which were about to start construction. We had hotels all around the world. What do we do with them? Do we keep them open? Do we close them? What do we do with our staff? We were trading at, 90 plus occupancy as a portfolio, and you all of a sudden are at 0. These are just unforeseen circumstances. So the first thing we did, of course, we just tried to get control of the business. So the first 2-3 months was all of us every single day, 7 days a week, speaking to one another. What's going on here? What's going on in America? What's in Europe? What's in Asia? Until we had control, and then we could start making some decisions. We decided we will not close any of our hotels. We'll keep them all open. We'll keep all of our staff on the payroll. We'll make sure that we are open for essential workers. We will not turn into, COVID hospitals and stuff like that, but we want to keep our hotels open. We will finish all our construction on hotels that are currently underway, and we'll wait with the ones that haven't started. So all these decisions were kind of made. We'll actually invest now in our technology in order to make sure that we have our app and we have full contactless stays going on. We looked at operations from a room cleaning point of view. You can imagine people didn't want room attendants coming in and cleaning the rooms. So we thought of a solution for that. And then we started looking at, okay, how can we still drive a little bit of revenue? So we did something which was quite interesting. I think it was 100 nights at citizenM for a fixed price, or you could pay, per month. And we had, quite a lot of interesting things. People were living in our hotels, coming down in their pajamas in the morning. And we had some guys just storing all their fishing gear in our Seattle hotel because it was cheaper than getting a rental box. But we started all just trying to do some fun things. And then slowly, as COVID started leaving us, we got back to business. But yeah, that was definitely the most stressful time we've had.
Just from a leadership perspective, how did you make decisions? Or when you suddenly have this barrage of quite complex decisions to make that impact all sorts of different departments, and how do you deal with that as a leader?
Well, at that time, we still had our strategic council, which was basically the heads of every department coming together. And we'd always make those decisions together as a group. We were quite in sync. And still are, I would say. I think we're a very, very tight-knit management team. We know how one another thinks, and we support each other. And the same held true for during these tough times during COVID. So actually, that was not really much of a challenge.
Are there any other industries that you find exciting at the moment outside of hospitality?
Other industries outside of hospitality? I mean, I'm always still inspired, of course, by retail, what's happening there, fashion, music, art. I mean, there's lots of things that are happening. And to name some particular brands, I don't know, but if you look at the hospitality space, I think that was one of the questions that you sent me as well. I mean, there's a few things that you see that it is overcrowded. You see that a lot of the independent lifestyle hotels, at a certain moment, they can't grow anymore. I guess mainly because of funding, and they get swallowed up by larger hotel companies. You saw that with, Hoxton, 25 Hours, and Mama Shelter, etc. But what I like is that you still see those founders of those companies continuing. I think so. You have Mob Hotel in Paris, and I had a call, which was about a couple of weeks ago. Was a really cool company called Paradero out of Mexico, and their whole idea is to have something really hyper local, so built in Mexico. Beautiful design, and the guy who's making the tacos, he's learned how to make those tacos from the woman in the village. But what was interesting, they said that 80% of their clients are women, which I found quite interesting. So people really go there to, unplug. They can have spa treatments. It's a very new way of looking at hospitality, really offering a kind of hyper local experience. So yeah, there's lots still happening, which I like. The industry never stands still, and I always look at other industries.
What's been your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday? Oh my God, that's a tough one. Well, I haven't been on holiday in a while. Yeah, well, I mean, the first time we really kind of did a family holiday with my son. My wife was still pregnant of our daughter, but we went to Anguilla, stayed there in the Four Seasons, which was a beautiful resort. And it was the first time I had an experience with a kids club, which was fantastic. You could drop them there in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. And it's quite nice. But yeah, I'm always a big fan of, when I do go on holiday, I really want to unplug. I want to read. I want to not be on my phone, not be on my email, spend time, be present with the family. So I do usually prefer more beach holidays. That's usually, around summertime and Christmas time. But I always love a good city trip as well. I always look for inspiration, whether it's New York or London or Paris. You have to keep traveling in order to keep your eyes open.
Robin, we always ask our guests 4 outro questions. The first of which is there something that irritates you about your industry? It's just your personal bugbear.
There's so many things. Just not thinking with a customer first mindset. So I was telling you before we started the podcast that I just came back from Berlin. I won't mention the name of the hotel, but I arrived there and I arrived there around 2:00. So I figured, okay, check-in should be around, 2, 3 o'clock. And instead of me getting a nice warm welcome there, the woman said, "Your room is not ready." That's all she said to me. I'm like, okay, can I drop my bag? Can I already pay for the room? Can I already do a pre-check-in? But I just got this really cold answer. And it just surprises me that, in so many hotels around the world, they just don't understand that the customer is there, to stay with you, and you have to treat them, like you would treat your best friend. And that's just forgotten. That's also forgotten in retail a lot of the times too, So that's something that really, really irritates me.
Robin, what concerns you about the world that we're leaving our kids?
There's a lot. I read an article in the weekend FT about cell phones, and your kid. Should you give your kid a smartphone, yes or no? And I mean, luckily my kids are young enough that I don't need to give them a smartphone yet, but all the technology, all the AI, I think that worries me a lot. Just because, when I was a kid, I was outside. I was catching frogs, I was climbing trees, I was, causing mischief outside and really being one with nature. And that's what concerns me the most, I don't want my kids to not have that experience. I also don't want them to be, left behind when it comes to technology. So where's that balance? I worry about that. And I haven't really dove into AI that much yet. I find it a bit scary, but we are looking at, of course, at citizenM. And again, from a customer point of view, how can we, make the experience better for them? But those are things that would concern me going forward for sure.
I think we're the guinea pigs for tech, really. I think when we have information that is contextual to the world around us rather than sitting within a screen that we peer down at, it will liberate us to use technology in a way that enhances our appreciation of life. And I would hope that when AI automates the things that the widget factory of life, it will open up our creative potential. One would hope. One would hope that our kids, or particularly yours and mine, all under the age of 10, will perhaps see that benefit rather than being caught in what feels like a quite transitionary period, in my opinion.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's hope for that.
If citizenM hadn't come into your life, or if you hadn't brought citizenM into the world, what do you think you'd be doing? Back to nightclubs?
Good questions. Definitely not nightclubs, but definitely still in hospitality, and definitely focusing on building a global brand. That's something that I wanted to do actually with the nightclub, but that was very, very complex. And just to give you an idea, it was the opposite of citizenM, because we had about, every citizenM has between, let's say, 10 and 15 ambassadors working there, maybe 5 per shift. And we had 40 people on the payroll, excluding the chefs. We had to manage a nightclub, programming, DJs, entertainment, security. We had 2 cocktail bars. We had a restaurant. It was very, very complex, not easy to scale. So I would say I would be doing something in hospitality, or I would be doing something, I would say, when it comes to not necessarily retail as in bricks and mortar, but some kind of new brand, some kind of, customer product, whether it's online or not, but something that's, heavily branded, very differentiated, really having a point of view, probably disruptive. I always like to look at things disruptively. Those are 2 things that come to mind.
Robin, what are you most excited about in the next 5 years? What are you looking forward to?
I'm still excited about citizenM. So really growing citizenM further. Yeah, I would say, getting to 100 hotels. That would be super, super exciting. And seeing how the brand evolves and develops over time and really becoming that brand of choice. When people look back maybe 10, 20 years from now on this era, with the likes of, all the big tech companies, I want citizenM to be on that list as well. That was the hotel really disrupted things in the industry. Really a pioneer when it came to that. And that's what we strive for every day. So that's what I'm excited about, to keep building it, keep evolving it, keep looking for new opportunities, new partnerships, evolving the guest experience, and have fun. That's the most important thing.
Well, I'm pretty sure you'll get there, Robin. Thank you so much, and can't wait to see what's next for citizenM.
Thanks, buddy. It was great doing it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been What the Lux. You can find us on socials at Matterform and drop us any questions or comments on Twitter using the hashtag #WhatTheLux. And if you're a luxury brand looking for strategy or design that goes beyond the banal, get in touch via hello@matterform.com and chat to one of our consultants. And so, until next time.